Okay, we have a recording. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Nick, can you hear us all right?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure, yeah. We don't have microphones, in this room.
it's not as echoey as the
Boardroom
yeah.
boardroom is really bad, you know, you have to really pay attention when you're, you know, if you're not in the room listening. Yeah,
So here we are.
here we are.
So I appreciate the spreadsheet that you sent,
Mhm.
and I wanted to just give you, I guess this is gonna be a work in progress. I created a list from the 2025 budget book as to what was approved
Uh-huh.
for construction in the order that it appears in the book.
Okay.
And basically, well, hi Jennifer, we just started.
How are you?
What I'm looking for is an overview of the projects that we have approved year by year. So let's say you go back 4 or 5 years to see where they are in terms of what's completed and what's open.
Okay,
And what has been basically stagnated, like for example, the locust line. It was approved and never built.
it's not true, it was built. We just paid it last year. The,
No, I'm talking about the multi-story parking.
oh, we didn't have anything approved for that. We didn't have any money approved for that. There was no money approved for,
I thought we did, and then Kevin stopped the project.
no, we never approved a parking garage. For Locust. So you want to go back 4 to 5 years, so what I gave you
Yeah.
was this list that you just provided, okay? Looking out over every single project and every single allocation, you only have the larger sum for each one, I gave you the
Yes,
individual allocation and where those projects stand
yes,
for fiscal 25.
yeah,
Okay.
and I appreciate that.
Uh,
We don't have that level of specificity on the budget book.
okay. That's not
There
asked
is
for,
some-
it's not asked for, but that's okay.
No, that's fine. This is perfect.
Okay,
I'm not arguing that. What I'm saying is that there are other projects, whether they were approved the year before or they were bonded in this 2025 year. They may or may not be in the list
well,
if you coordinate yours with mine.
no, what is here on your
Yeah.
list?
Yes.
Okay, if you took this from the budget book,
Mhm.
that is exactly what is here. So all these projects are in that list,
Okay,
okay? So, because and that's, you didn't ask for that, I gave you that. You
Yeah.
asked me for this sheet, you know, specific, some of the
Yes.
specific projects. Yeah, but I decided to, you know, go one step further and expand it to fiscal 25 to show you where we were on all the fiscal 25 projects. So all of these that are listed here
Mhm.
are there. Anything I got an account number for and a budget for is on that sheet,
For
that
this
larger
year.
sheet for fiscal 25,
okay,
correct.
okay.
This is all your capital.
That's all DPW capital, that's
Yes.
correct.
And is this all bonded or some of it isn't?
So it's not, it all
Okay.
depends upon, that's Board of Finance, your decision, I don't know.
Okay,
It really comes down to size of project at that point in time, size of allocation. So anything over $50,000 was bonded, anything below $50,000 was tax supported capital.
was there a difference if it was a vehicle or if it was?
Not that I'm aware of, no, I think it was just a number. I don't think it went.
50,000, Christina, is the threshold, and in an effort this year or for next upcoming budget year to reduce the tax supported amount, we took all the items that were in there for like 50,000, some even for 40,000, and asked the different departments to group them together. For example, radios for fire department, radios for the police. The question was, can we lump them together and then make it bonded so that we reduce the tax supported amounts?
Okay, and is that going in the 10-year bond versus a 20-year bond category? Did you separate them also time-wise?
I don't know, that's more an and question. We just decided as a Board of Finance, or I requested that they lump them together and make them bonded, but as far as the term, that is, Ann would know that, I don't know.
And that's, and some of those totals are delineated in Todd's like summary that,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Tiger's right. So everything over 50,000 on there for sure for DPW, regardless of what it is, should be bonded.
So if we go back, the status of certain projects, what stands out as not having been started from what has been appropriated?
Okay,
Any,
so you don't have a specific question, that's a general question?
well, it's a general question. Specifically, I have the playground at Waveney. that-
Playground at Waveney has started, so we've been working, we've had the discussion prior, we've been working with the Friends of Waveney Park Playground. They're going forward with a fundraising campaign
Mhm.
to help augment the park or the playground. So we've been working on that for approximately 2 years now with them. They've kicked off their capital campaign. They've gone, right now is the grant cycle. So you can imagine it starts in like November and then runs its way through. I'm not, I'm not an expert on that, but that's what they say. So they're inside the grant cycle, so they need to be inside, we had to wait for the grant cycle. They're inside the grant cycle and they've gone out with their own fundraising campaign, subsequent to that as well, to then raise money to help augment the amount of money that we have available to make a better playground. We put in a board and play surface, some additional, amenities, some additional, all abilities, aspects to the playground itself. So since we're working with them, we need to wait for that grant cycle to come forward and their fundraising effort to come forward before we finalize the project.
So do they have a plan or that's like they don't do the?
We have a plan, we have various versions of the plan based upon how much money you have, right?
Right.
So,
Like a wish list?
yes, so smaller version for smaller amount of money, larger version for a larger amount of money. But one aspect of it was the fitness area. We've already finished the fitness area. So the fitness area has been in since last year. That was about $117,000 of the project itself. And that portion has been completed because we could separate that portion and do that piece. So that's in. We're about to take out the old fitness area. We were waiting for weather, only because it was locked in solid throughout the winter and our crews were busy fighting snow every 2-3 days. So now that it's available, Ryan is saying that he wants to get in there and take care of that, to remove those elements, and then we just return to grass until we're ready to actually plant the new fitness area in that, and not the new playground area in the existing fitness area, the old fitness area. But we're working, like I said, with the Friends of Waveney Park Playground. They had a podcast that went out on the
Yeah.
on the McCain a couple of weeks ago. Monica did it, Monica Capella, and once they're ready to go, we put in for a STEEP grant, Small Town Economic Assistance Program grant, just recently.
So is there any like placeholder for that in this?
Not in that, because that's fiscal 25, the
Okay.
prior year was $455,000. It won't be on that line. You won't, all these show on your budget book is the year prior. It won't show you the year before that. So it wasn't in last year's and the year prior to that. It's $455,000, of which we spent about $117K.
So where is that 450,000? What year's line is that?
I'm not quite certain. I have to look back and see.
About 3 years ago.
It got delayed 1 year in the budget cycle and then it came forward. I'd have to find out what that
But
budget.
can I ask a very basic question? Because I was really trying hard to follow all the Board of Finance and, Todd's meeting. And so along those lines, it seemed like there were a number of places where something like that, where you had a placeholder from prior years, but it hasn't been done, like, then it seemed like it was coming off the books until it was ready. Then am I misinterpreting that?
No, they didn't take, they take it off the books, they take it off the books, it's gone. So there was certain projects that we had either completed, the Board of Finance did a very deep dive this past year on it. And for this specific budget cycle, so they did a deep dive in February of that. So anything that we weren't utilizing or projects had closed or, there was remaining monies, they swept all those back in to, if it was tax supported, went back into the tax support section, or if it was bonded, it just, the accounts are closed and the monies aren't available.
So this is just to help me, like, with my
Sure.
education, because I still feel like I'm relatively new to it, but like, so for example, like. If you were gonna compare these two, like the Dunning Enterprise Zone, like that there's like a 2 million that is not. That I think that the way it was framed was that you're just leaving in like the development money because they're not ready to go with it. So why doesn't that happen with something like the playground?
Well, the playground, we originally had anticipated going forward quickly, and there wasn't really that much development work that needed it, to go. So, but then when the Friends of Waveney Park Playground came forward, the commission asked us to look forward and see if we could make it a little bit bigger, and the Friends came forward saying that they wanted to help. So if we can get community money, we're gonna get community
So it's
money.
more like the model of Capo, because it's like, because they're pledging
No, it's
to.
more like the model of the Mead Park Playground. Mead Park Playground was done similarly. We had monies available for a specific type of playground with no board-in-place surface. And the Friends of Mead Park Playground came forward and said that they wanted to have a board-in-place surface and they wanted to raise money for that board-in-place surface. So the project ostensibly then had to go forward, and it gets stretched out a little bit because you allow them opportunities to fundraise. They were able to fundraise a good amount of money. We got a board-in-place surface, whereas we would have had a wood chip surface prior.
What I recall from the meeting when this project was presented and approved was that it was an emergency project.
It was to get the fitness area out. It wasn't an emergency, but we needed to start to remove some of the fitness elements, and we have removed some of the fitness elements that were compromised. So that the thought was that we needed to do that to remove the fitness elements. The playground was not an emergency. We didn't even label the fitness area as an emergency. We said that we need to do it. We need to start removing it in order to get some of the elements out and put in a new one, which we've done. So we put the new one in.
So when the money was requested, it was requested the 455,000 that encompassed the entire project, and it was a description, and you had gotten the prices from the manufacturer, the supplier of the equipment.
We had a very broad base of what we were looking to accomplish at the time. We didn't have specific items selected, specific elements selected. We had a broad base of how large the area was and what we thought we'd be able to accomplish in that area.
So some of us on the council who are confused by the fact that a project was presented as an urgent, emergent, whatever was used project, and nothing was done until substantially later. But at the same time, a group came in to fundraise. So the question is, what is the cost of the entire project? And I know that it could be in stages depending on how much they want to.
Then that's the exact answer. I don't have an answer yet, because if they're able to fundraise zero, it's $455,000. So I don't have a number, because I have to, rightly so, I want to give them the opportunity to raise funds for it. And the commission asked us to work with the Friends to raise some additional monies to get the best playground we possibly could in that area. So we have to work with the commission as well, since the commission asked us to work, put together a committee, which that was also a council requirement, put together a committee. We put together a committee. Committees take time. And then from there, the Friends of Waveney Playground came forward, said that they needed some additional time to raise funds. And we felt that the only thing that we really needed to do was to work on the fitness area, because the playground was an add. So we did exactly that. We put the fitness area in, and now we're removing the existing fitness area, and we've already removed the elements that were compromised, I'll say.
So let me just go back to one ordinance that was written up by the town council back in 1997. It's the Bach Amendment. Okay,
I'm not.
so basically, what I I'm trying to reconcile in my mind, when does a project become a town project and when does it become a private-public partnership? And if we approved as on town council a project and funded the project, how is it possible then that it becomes a public-private partnership without really presenting it back to town council, because we already gave the monies?
But we haven't finished or finalized the project yet. So the feeling is that we would likely need to come back to the council since the project is morphed and there'll be more money. Likely, if they're able to raise the funds, than the $455,000 allocated. In order for us to spend the additional monies, we've got to go back through the boards, but we're not there yet because we don't have the amount of money that we know that they're gonna raise. So once they raise that money, then we'll know exactly what the larger scope of the project is, and then we can go back to the boards because of the Bach Amendment to take care of those. That's my read on it as well, is that I'd have to go back at over $455,000. I'd have to come back and ask for additional monies or additional approval based upon the fact that there's donated money involved.
Okay, so I want you to look at it from the other side. A project that a group wants to do, private group, comes to the town will say, come back to us when you have the money.
Yeah.
So this is the other way around. We provide the money and then they come in. So I'm trying to reconcile with the back amendment. If we have to amend it to encompass a different situation or a different type of project, we should do that.
Amend the Bach Amendment?
Yeah,
Oh, that's a discussion for the council. My feeling was that if, in order for us to satisfy the Bach Amendment, I'd have to come back with the revised project and see if the council wants to go forward with it at that level. That's
Yeah,
all.
so that's like, I think having just read it, that's straightforward. So if at the point at which you know what they're fundraising and then there's a new plan, then you come back to us and say it's gonna be X and then we approve it. That part of that.
that's what I'm not sure about, that it ever comes back to us because we already approved monies. So once we.
First of all, it's
approve
not my
it-
decision. That's a decision for others. That's one. My read on it, my personal read is that I would have to come back because I can't spend over the $455,000 because that's all I've been approved to spend. So for me, for my protection, I would want to come back or at least ask the question of my superiors to say, what it is, but we don't know what the number is yet. This was a very special situation whereby we had monies and then a group came forward and said, we want to make it better. The commission said, work with the group, form a committee, work with the group and see what you can come up with. So we were directed to go do that. We're doing exactly that. And then at that point in time, whatever that project would be, yeah, the town could say, no, we don't want to put $1.5 million playground in, or we do want to put $1.5 million playground in. Not that it's going to be $1 million, I think it's being facetious, but the town would have to decide. The town is right now accepted $455,000 of a playground. They haven't accepted a $750,000 playground. Things of that nature. So
I'm
that's
not-
not my decision. That's
I'm
for
not-
others.
I just want to clarify, I'm not opposed to the playground. I'm not opposed to the work. I'm more concerned with the process.
I understand, but that process, that's not my decision.
I
So so the questions that you're asking me are very uncomfortable, A, and B, I can tell you what my feeling is that I needed to come back to the boards after they were done fundraising, and the one was we had a final number, then we would come back and get approval. But this discussion you're asking, well beyond my purview.
Okay.
So it needs to go.
But
It
for
needs to
for
go.
the purposes, are you somewhat satisfied by the fact that if this project that ultimately gets, that they plan on going forward, and if it's above 450K, that Tiger would come back and we'd have to approve it, like, if that seems to be in line with the spirit of this.
If the town council has a say on a project that's already been approved within a budget, to increase it with funds from other places or requiring additional funds from the town, I'm fine with it. What I don't want to see is a project started that falls outside and contradicts basically what the spirit of the Bach Amendment is, which is before any private organization wants to build anything on public land, on town-owned land, that they would have to come for an approval. Now, we've been very it's been typical for either the Board of Finance or the Town Council to say, well, come back to us when you have the money. And questioned even if the organization could even fundraise the monies that they were thinking about. But in this case, since it came as a project from the town to replace the playground, and a specific number was given to encompass everything that is, was necessary or desired. And the project didn't go through. We questioned as to where was the project and how far along was it before it would start. My understanding is that there was some work done in the past few months, and that's great. But it's still the question of the fundraising private entity coming in after the project was financed by the town. So I would love to see them fundraise enough, do what they wanted for our number to decrease from what we committed to come in less. I don't know if that's possible. But I just don't want to send a wrong message to other nonprofits that the Bach Amendment can be circumvented by having the town approve a project and then come in and ask for more or delay the project.
No one suggested that we were gonna circumvent the Bach Amendment.
No,
Certainly
and I'm not
myself.
saying that.
Well, but my feeling is I have proof of $455,000.
Yes.
The moment I go for 455,01, I gotta go to somebody else, and somebody else gotta say it's okay.
Okay,
That's my take on it, but that's, and we're at, right now, we don't know what the number's gonna be. I can tell you it's not gonna be below 455. Because and I don't believe that they're gonna fundraise and then lessen the town's commitment. The town's commitment was 455, and then anything that the Friends could come up with would be an add to it, not necessarily a deduct. I don't think she would be able to fundraise money for lessening the
Yeah,
town's
should make it
contribution.
more.
It's gotta be,
Yeah.
right, it's gotta be, so people would contribute up into the town where the town finally gets to zero. I think the people wouldn't contribute at all. I think they contribute to augment it, not to necessarily replace it.
what's their goal to fundraise? Do you know?
As much as she can fundraise, that's the goal overall. Because again, to your point, you can scale the project up. We're only limited by the area that we're in. So eventually it would be too large, but you're limited by only that. Other than that, it really comes down to what elements you want to put in. And we were looking at somewhere on the order, like say $750,000 for the playground itself.
Christina, maybe it's prudent for the town council to invite that person or that group to speak to the town council about their plans, because to Tiger's point, yeah, he's not involved in their fundraising. He's tasked to get this playground going with the 455 the town has approved. And I think we should get an answer from them as far as timing and planned fundraising that they're gonna do. Because I guess Tiger, the more they collect, the more they raise, the more, I guess, fancy kind of playground they can build, right?
Yeah, you can change your elements. You can change, the elements get larger, broader, more expensive. They take up a larger footprint. That's money, right? Square footage, right? So more poured in place surface, more development, things of that nature.
Yeah.
The Board of Selectmen had a large discussion about it.
Did she present for that?
No, it came out during our, it was through the Board of Finance. We had a discussion about the playground and how large it would be, or what, I think it was during the grant request. They had a discussion about it, and then, yeah, you build it, but then eventually in 20 years, we needed to take care of it. It's now the town's responsibility, right? And that's the spirit of the Bach Amendment, is that you don't put something in that now you put the town on the hook for.
That's a problem.
So much later.
Copper too.
Yeah, but there you went forward knowing that it was 5. To Christina's point, you went forward, you don't know what it is at present. That's why I'm saying my read is I got to that. But that'll be a discussion for others to decide. That's for Todd, for Mike, for Deanna. Those are for others to decide that at that point in time.
So is that something you want to put together, the committee, whether it's
As far as what?
What's her name? The committee.
Monica.
Friends of Waveney Park Playground.
Yes, and maybe if you like, somebody from the commission, Park and Rec Commission,
What are you asking for? I'm sorry, I'm missing the point.
to to basically update everyone on
If
the,
you want them to come forward to next point, just, you can request it, and we'll come forward and give you an update.
okay,
And I can have Monica come forward and, tell you, where they're at on their fundraising and where they are, what their plans are going forward. Probably work to her advantage to have a little bit more publicity out there as well, so, but that's a, I could reach out to her and ask her, what her availability is for, an upcoming meeting, so she can give you an update as to where they are,
okay,
where she is.
that sounds good.
That's no problem at all.
Can I ask a question? And it's all, this is all like a learning curve for me, just trying to understand the timing of everything, but, I have a question, following, in your presentation with Board of Finance, in terms of something with Irwin House, what I was just wondering is, so for 24-25, 150,
Mhm.
slotted for the Irwin Park demo. So
For the house,
Right.
not for the demolition.
I see,
It was
okay.
not for demolition.
That was just for maintenance of the house?
Yeah, that was to, the Board of Finance provided us $150,000 for us to do repairs to the exterior of the building, specifically painting and woodwork that was starting to rot.
So
With,
you may end up answering my question
Sure.
and not meaning that question. So was that done? This 150 wasn't for a
No.
study
no,
or,
it was not, it was
Okay.
actually, but the mandate was that, they wanted us to come back with a use of the building.
Mhm.
So that was part of the mandate.
Mhm.
When we started looking further at it, realized that, the roof was the next largest item. And since we had hired Hoffman to come in and take a look at Waveney House and the Lapham Community Center, the Board of Selectmen directed us to then have them come in and do an analysis of Irwin, basically an envelope study of Irwin, to find out exactly what it would be to encompass all the work before we spent any money on starting to repair it, how much would it be? So we contracted with Hoffman to come out and tell us, and they told us that to just do the outside would be $1.31 million. At that point in time, then the discussion was, what do we want to do with the building? Do you want to repair it or do you want to tear it down? So we put the monies in the budget for $1.3 million to go forward and then get everyone's feeling on what they wanted to do. And the Board of Finance determined that they don't want to save the building for $1.3 million for the exterior, and they left $400,000 in the budget for us to take it down and handle any of the environmental aspects.
So I think that you're answering my question. So, because I understood all of that, and then I was just wondering if there was 150 left or not used. I thought this was for the study of what were the environmental impacts of taking it down. So this whole 400,000 will now encompass like the cost, you think, to take it down?
We think, yeah.
Okay.
So what there's 130 left because we had to spend some money on Hoffman.
Okay,
So of that money, we wanted to then engage the environmental consultant to take a look. So they give you a pre-read on what needs to happen as you're taking the building down, and then they monitor it and then make sure that all the everything is handled properly as far as materials, what have you.
Mhm.
But we had a quote for $175,000, I believe, to take the building down, and our estimate for the environmental was anywhere from 100 to 400,000. So we split that in the middle and said it was $200,000. We took 200 and 200, came up with the $400,000.
Jennifer, we don't know, when they do the environmental study, what they're gonna find,
right.
right? So the demo of the one, like, I think 150, 175 Tiger was the number, and then somehow 250 is swirling in my head, the initial for the environmental, but then we said, well, we don't know what we're gonna find. It's a 1960s build, but the lead and all the other stuff, we don't know what's gonna be found in the ground. And by the way, the 1.319 million that Tiger mentioned for the exterior, Jennifer, There's another 400,000 for the interior. If we were going to maintain the building, so 1.7 we're talking about.
Right, no, I understand all that part, and I'm on board with all that. What I was just trying to understand is. So the 400 is in addition to the 150, so you basically have 550 to work with. That's what I'm just trying to figure them
It's
out.
530, yeah,
I'm
'cause we
sorry,
paid
yeah,
20.
sorry, you just
So,
told me that, sorry.
yes,
Okay.
we have that available, and whatever we would need, we would spend, the rest of it would just roll back. But we don't, to Nick's point, we don't know, we, like I said, we were estimating anywhere from 100 to 400 for the environmental. We literally kind of split that in half
Mhm.
and said, okay, and then said, well, give us 400 and we'll see. But we're gonna know more after, after we get a bid, and then the environmentalist does their work, and then they see. And then we'll
Great.
determine at that
So
point. in time.
just to sum up, because now I'm happy to
Sure.
have got it answered, that basically we've got 530 in the coffer to cover demo and potentially environmental cleanup.
Correct,
That's all, thanks. I
yes,
just wanted
that's
to-
you're correct.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, because there was confusion swirling around on the first 150, but the first 150 was literally, all right, we'll give you a little bit of money to start dressing up the outside, but you gotta come back to us with a plan. And instead, we decided to, and rightly so, take a look at the entire building, and see what it was gonna entail before we started work.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, so 530 is the total budgeted number at this point.
no,
It's what's-
right now I have 130 left, and I have 400 in this
Right.
budget. If that gets approved, then I'll have 530.
Okay.
Yeah, right now I've got 130, and then, 400 in this budget.
Okay, good.
And hopefully that'll be enough. We think of what we're not certain. But it's 1960s building, so it's, it's pre-lead paint, it's pre-asbestos, it's got a lot of stuff going on for it. We're hoping that there isn't much, but we don't know.
Can of worms.
It's got a bomb shelter, it's got a lot of stuff going on with it.
Well, you could leave that, utilize that, give it to rest.
Thought about that, yeah, no, it's kind of cool, but
Next to other buildings.
You put landscape
There is
over it like
the-
a berm,
yeah. The tunnels I'm told were filled in with sand, but there were tunnels going to other properties.
One of the tunnels going to Irene Barrett's
Yes,
house.
yeah,
That could have been really interesting, right? Like to landscape over it and have this like
right, they had.
emergency
yeah,
shelter.
Yeah, they were friends, so they had an escape route between each other, and I believe that they were filled in. I was told that they were filled in with sand, I'm not quite certain, I've never
A lot of
walked them.
sand.
Lifestyles of the rich and famous, right?
Yeah.
Secret bunker.
Anyway, so what about Waveney House? What updates do you have on that?
Waveney House is the upstairs bathrooms are complete. The downstairs bathroom will be signed off, the family bathroom will be signed off tomorrow. He's worked on everything to prepare for the elevator. And the elevator is being released for shop drawings and construction. And our goal is to have it here in December and installed in January. So January, it's just starting right after the new year, January going forward. So for 3 months, January to March is our window.
There are no weddings planned?
No, we have nothing planned. We left that window open. Yeah, that was with John.
Okay,
So we have that window open.
what about the building envelope?
The building envelope is out to bid right now. We had a walkthrough with the contractors earlier in the week. And the bids are due back at the end of the month. And then at that point in time, we'll be hopefully coming to Board of Finance and the council for an appropriation as far as a bond authorization, so we can bring it to the selectmen first week of May. And then start the work, have the contractor come out and start the work. We were just going over what his available work schedule would be this morning, John and Joe and myself, as far as, what dates are not available as far as weddings and other events, July 4th, things of that nature. And we'll give that schedule to the contractor, and then he'll start his work. But we have an estimate of what it's gonna be based upon Hoffman's estimate, but we don't know until the bids come in.
Okay. Now, the money that was appropriated prior to this project, was there money appropriated?
There was money appropriated, yeah. So that went towards the architectural fee, and then Hoffman's envelope study, and then the subsequent work to put out the new bid. So yes,
How much money?
I don't have that off the top of my head, sorry. I can get that for you, but I didn't.
Okay. So the project before with the other architect was around what, 600,000?
500,000, yeah, yeah, that was what the appropriation was at the time.
And that included the architect's fees?
That included the architectural fees, I believe, yeah,
Okay,
but I'll verify that for you.
so whatever money's left over will roll over onto this project?
Yes, it will, that's correct.
Did- Okay. No.
Hmm?
No. To refer to when we talk about each building, you have one that's.
Uh, no, yeah, yeah, 7:30-ish. Whenever, Mike asked us to be brief. And basically, tell you where we are and what our drivers are, we're at 3.86. Overall, but that takes into account, a lot of the reconciliation on the DPW contract. Because last year's budget, they kept us flat because we were in budget negotiations, so this year's budget actually reflects, if you go budget to budget, it reflects 2 years of raises for my staff. So that's why we're at about 386. We were at about 1.9 if you don't have that in there. But we have to basically, if you're looking at, you need to look at it from budget to revise, not budget to budget, but we're looking at budget to budget, we're at 386 overall. And the main driver is specifically that the staffing, now that we've settled their contract, it got signed just the other day, as a matter of fact.
So it went from 1.9 staffing to what?
No, well, when you looked at it prior, before I put the staffing numbers in, I was at 1.9. But the staffing numbers, because it's a 2-year analysis. It's because the first year, last year, we didn't, you don't put the money into the budget because you don't want to tip your hand on your negotiations, so it was 0. So when you go, the budget request from last year was 0 because the money was in contingency over here, right? Well, now we know what the number is, so now the number's been reconciled for 2 years worth of raises. So while I look at them at 3.86, and if you look at, like, say, the highway department budget, if you look at the highway department budget, it's a 7.15% year over year budget to budget increase for salaries, but it's really not, because if you go by the revised number to the fiscal 25 revised budget to the fiscal 26 recommended budget, it's only $70,000 instead of being $154,000. So you're looking at double, right? So instead of it being 7.15%, it's closer to like 3.5, because it's not just, it's their raise plus anybody who's got steps coming in, because we've had a lot of new hires. So it's a little bit, it's not pure, that's all. That's all I'm saying. It's just not pure because of how we budgeted originally, rightly so. You don't want to tip your hand to the unions by saying, oh, we put 3% in the budget, then they think we're gonna get 3%. Put 0 in, they don't know what what the town is thinking as far as their negotiations.
So what was the increase on the union contract?
It was, well, it was 2.7, it was 2% and 50-cent raise, and then 2.7 and 2.7, I believe, for the 3 years.
So it's gonna be a retroactive payment.
That they have it in there, that there's a retroactive back, that's correct, for the first year. That's right, that's the 2%. one, and then the next year is 2.7, and the year after that is 2.7. So yeah, by the time we signed it, we're already a year behind, which is standard. That typically happens. But so it's a little, like I said, it's a little,
Okay,
it's not pure, because it's like, when you look at it, you say, well, the highway department got a 7% increase. No, they didn't. That's 2 years worth of increases.
got it.
But that, so apart from that driver, there's some drivers in the buildings, but that's specifically on the fact that our outside contractor, our service contracts, and our cleaning contracts are all coming due June 30, so we've already bid them out, and the subsequent increases are included in this budget, so we are aware of them. But that's just we had a 3-year and 5-year contract for those services, and you keep a contract flat for 5 years, you're gonna be looking at an increase in that next year, and that's basically what's happening. We have the same situation at the transfer station and at the wastewater plant. Transfer station, we're looking at increases for our garbage hauling, things of that nature, and then sludge hauling for the wastewater plant, because we're in the 4th year of the contract. So there's an increase associated with that. But yeah, right now, our property cleaning, we're planning on it going up by $60,000, but that's a big number based upon, what we received from our bids. And we're looking at $30,000 increase in our outside contractors, and then 49,150 in our service contracts. And they're mainly because the contracts are coming due, we rebid them, and this is what the numbers are now. The new normal, so to speak.
Mhm.
But those are so Mike wanted us to stick with what he considered to be the main drivers. Those are the main drivers, that and the one additional staff member for the engineering department. That's the $100,000 that we spoke about before. And that'll, pending approval, we'll start soliciting for that. But I don't want to go on the street until I know that it's been approved.
Right.
Yeah, it's not fair to anybody who's looking at move. That one. But yeah, and then Board of Finance asked us to do a very deep dive on our capital, and I think I gave back another like $4 million or more, closer to 5, I think,
It's 4.8.
overall. So that was where, you had $900,000 on the Irwin, right? So 1.3 to 400. Dunning went from 2 million to 200,000 just to do the design. And then there was Waveney Conservancy at $300,000. There was traffic consultant, traffic calming, 150,000 for traffic calming, traffic consultants at 50,000. So it was a good amount of money given back. Service walls, the walls at Waveney, $100,000 for the walls at Waveney. Going by memory, but that was approximately, I think it was at one point in time, it was close to $5 million in capital, went back, say 4.5 million. So now our capital is overall reduction is somewhere on the order from last year. So overall reduction. So it's 40% down, or $9 million down from last year. So it's a $14 million request, and last year was a 23,448. So about $9,400,000 lower than last year. And that's normalized without having the police department in, because the police department skew the results.
Right.
So without the police department in there.
Can we talk briefly about the roads, in the increase in paving?
Sure. So, well, last year I gave you an analysis of where we were going to be. And on a 5-year, going forward, we held firm at 2.5 million for 20 years, never asking for an increase. And now we're at the point where just can't hold that number anymore. It's just not possible to do what we need to do for our road network every year. So I went out and analyzed what was going to happen for the next 5 years. and then average that out. Last year, I only asked for 3 million, even though the average was 3.5. And then this year, so it would go from 2.5 to 3 to 3.5, so it would soften that blow, and this year went up to 3.5. And then it looks like we'll be able to stay at that 3.5 for at least the next 4 years, if not longer. I haven't gone out that far. At that point, it gets a little wonky because it's 5 years out, and the material costs and things of that nature gets a little bit harder. But I know what roads we're planning on doing in 5 years, and I estimated the costs associated with them, but it's a little uncomfortable to get out to 6, 7, 8, 9 and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend 3.5. I don't know that. I'll know more as it goes forward. But that's the overall, is that, we just couldn't hold that number anymore. And do what we needed to do to keep the roads in the condition that the people expect or come to expect, like that. That's a better way to describe it. Yeah.
How far down would the index go if you kept it at 3 million per year?
I don't know, I'd have to look, but it's gonna slide. It'll definitely slide. At $500,000 is probably, it's at least a point or so. And there's no, all that does is just push it out 1 year. It doesn't make it go away. It just pushes it out a year, and that cost will be actually increased. And then you're gonna, at some point in time, you're gonna force me into another repair. When you force me into another repair, and that cost is gonna skyrocket on that repair on that road. So if I don't take care of it at the time I need to take care of it, all you're doing is driving the cost. You're pushing it out 1 year. Yeah, so you could say you have an incremental savings of $500,000, but the increased cost on that work 1 year out will go up. So say 3 to 5% minimum. The contractors are telling me it's 5%. Because I asked them the other day, what are we looking at? They're like, oh, it's 5%. So it's 5% up. And then if I have to change the technique from one to the next, that's an incremental cost right there.
No, I understand all that, but a 35 to 40% increase is.
Well, that's correct, except for the fact that I look at it from the standpoint of I held it firm for 20 years. So I was at $2.5 million for 20 years. At some point in time, it has to move. I couldn't move prior. We would already be higher than that. Had we gone with just a standard 2% increase, year over year, we would be well above that number. It didn't need the money, so we didn't take it. So in the essence, we saved the town about $16 million over the past 20 years of how we've been working through our road maintenance and the techniques we use. Now it's just at a point where it's untenable. We can't do it. So if you want to change the matrix and you want to change how it's done and then change the expectation of the writer, that's a different story. Right now, I can tell you that the phone rings when the PCI hits 78. So the moment the PCI hits 78, the phone rings.
The PCI.
Pavement condition index. So the thought is, we try to stay above that, because that's when everyone's unhappy. So our limit is right there. That's why our average is around an 89. So you got about 78 to 100. Everybody sits inside that, and all of your satisfaction is there. So that's
Jennifer, I don't know if you remember, I made the comment in the Board of Finance meeting that when Tiger put up the PCI hit like a low, was it like 10, 15 years ago, Tiger?
Yeah.
73, 74, 75.
Yep.
And then we started investing some money and in the road maintenance and conditioning, and that index increased to the 89 he's mentioning, and it's been sort of level since then. But I personally had noticed an improvement in the condition of the streets and roads in New Canaan, and that is tied with us spending the money and maintaining the roads. To Tiger's point, like any equipment, same with the road, if you don't maintain it, at some point it's going to have a catastrophic failure, and then it's going to cost you a whole lot more to buy new, if you will, versus just patching over time. They have this process where I forget the exact terminology, Tiger, where you basically fill the cracks, right? And then do something else. And so they have a cycle when they go through. The street I live on was repaved just before I moved there 5 years ago. And now cracks are starting to show, and folks come over and they start filling those cracks. And then another 5 years, they're may have to do another resurfacing. So it's just really a process. And in my industry, I am in the industry, that is just something that we have to factor in, lest you want to incur significantly higher costs.
I understand that and respect that, what Tiger proposes. The thing is that we're at a very high PSI index. What would it cost to just drop it 1%? Would it be even noticeable? But to the budget, when you look at what $500,000 does when we bond, it's significant. Because it takes away from our ability going forward to bond other projects, especially after the Moody's meeting took place.
Yeah, but you know, you heard Tiger, when everything is going up and we'll save, in quotes, spending it now or putting it, bonding it, but then next year you're gonna have to do even more so for that what you would have spent now. I mean, it's it's one of those calls where, yeah, we could do it, but then we'll pay more next, and then we're gonna have next year. We're gonna have this discussion next year about, well, why didn't we do this last year or something? It's tough. I mean, it's town council's decision, but it's just my opinion.
You just wanna be careful, it's not like the Pennywise pound foolish, you know?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We had that prior, the council reduced a couple of times prior, and then they increased a year later. So the exact same thing, you can't, the numbers, in essence, the numbers don't lie, right? So the number tells me I've got to touch this road on this date, right? Based upon the numbers and based upon the conditions out there. And then I know what the, pretty much, I mean, I don't know, but I know pretty much what that number is going to be based upon all the prior.
Mhm.
And that's the calculation. And we are literally, my calculation, I rounded it down. So my calculation is higher and I rounded it down instead of rounding it up. So, I'm above $3.5 million worth of work. I'm rounding it down, saying, okay, it's just 3.5 in order to make it work. If I have to push a road, I push a road sometimes, but for the most part, if you're asking to reset, then that's gonna reset my lower number. And then that lower number is gonna be, that's where the phone's gonna ring, right? So they're not calling when it's at 90, they're calling at 78. So they're calling it 80 and below. My low number right now is 78. So if you want me to reduce my PCI to come down a point or two, then my low number comes down one more year. So I go from 78 to a 76, 75 on those lower roads. That's when the phone's gonna ring. The phone's gonna ring for about 2-3 years before I'm there ready to go take care of that road. That's where your dissatisfaction from the taxpayer is gonna increase, because that's the roads that they're driving on, they live on, what have you, and that's where the phone call comes from. So, and I can tell you it's by just, by history, the moment we hit 80, it's the moment that, 78, it's the moment the phone rings. It's very interesting, because they'll say, oh, when are you gonna pave my road? And I gotta look at it and I go, next year, because next year you're gonna be right there. She's at an 80 and she's gonna be at 78 next year, and I'm gonna do it next year. Literally, the people are right on it. They, for whatever reason, that they know, just by driving the road.
So let me ask you, excuse me, with regards to wanting to roads to remain bonded versus taking it out of the general fund. In the past, we didn't have the general fund to pay ahead for work and then reimburse us for bonding.
We've always had the general fund to pay for bonding. We don't pay, we pay in arrears.
Well,
So we bond in arrears. We don't bond, we pay as we go, and then we bond in arrears.
well, I remember times when that wasn't done.
That's not my recollection, but yeah, that's fine. I've always understood it. My understanding was always that we bonded in arrears. We didn't bond and then.
I always feel like she's saying bonding.
So one of the, yes, Anne is
Yeah.
saying that, but I'm talking about way back.
Okay,
So what I'm suggesting or basically asking is it possible to put it into the operating fund, to put the road work, or at least part of it, to deduct from the amount that we normally would bond? Since we're paying and we have enough in the set aside fund or general fund money, can we just pay it off of that rather than, and tax the taxpayers for it as we go along, rather than just bonding it and spreading out over 20 years?
That's a discussion for the Board of Finance.
Yes, and I'm looking at that you have all the answers.
But the council did that a number of years ago. They reduced the they reduced the bonded amount by
Mhm.
$500,000 and put $500,000 in tax supported capital
Yeah,
and said that they were gonna continue forward with that process
Mhm.
that lasted 1 year. Then the next year, they took it out of tax supported capital because that's a half a point of it, that's a half a point on, of a tax increase to people and put it back into the bonded account. They did it 1 year, went from 4.5 down to 4, back up to 4.5.
and why was that?
Because they didn't want to tax the people at the time. They felt that it should be where, if you're gonna get the benefit of the road for the 20 years, you pay for it over 20 years.
Like, I feel like that's what it's for argument is that if you do it that way, that it's that.
I understand
It's for
that,
the people 10 years now, like I might not be here using those roads that like,
right? Well, yeah, I can understand the argument both ways. I can just tell you what happened. I have to look back on exactly what it was, but I know that the council did it. And I remember what they said, that they were gonna put the 500 in.
I think it was
It's
Mr.
actually what-
Willie's.
I can't remember, to be honest with you, I remember the discussion, they put 500 in tax supported, and then the balance in bonded, and then the next year, it all went back to bonded, and that went away. And then since that time, it was bonded prior, then we did that 1 year where it was split, and then after that, it went back to bonded again, and it's been that way for a while. But that's really not the funding side is not my side, that's
I
you
got
guys,
it.
so
I got
you
it.
guys decide how you want to fund it. And there's arguments both sides. There's arguments to say pay it now, a lot of money to pay it right now, or it's time to say everyone should take a bite of the apple because they're gonna drive on it for the next 20 years, so every resident should pay for what they're using. Which I can understand as well. It's a lot of money either way you slice it. It's a lot of money.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I think it's a wrap.
All right,
thank you so much.
it's no problem. Yeah, tonight should
Thank you,
be,
Tiger.
thanks, Nick. Tonight should be.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Jennifer.
Bye.
Thank you, bye. I'm so appreciative of all this. I feel like.
I want this. Press the button up there. Save, stop recording on the, here's the mouse.
Do you have the mouse? I do not. Is
Oh,
oh,
is that?
It's good.
Okay.
thank you for the use of greens, right? Do you feel like rest a little before?
What?
Do a few things, then rest.